Hey there. Um, I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel the future feels a bit bleak. Or actually, the current moment does feel heavy. And maybe you're like me, maybe you're like kind of a scrum master or an agile coach. And I find that me and many others are kind of in a situation where it's frustrating or hard. And some are speaking about that agile instead. Well, that's not new. That conversation has been going on for years. But speaking into this, rather than being frustrated or giving up, what I aim to do is bring hope. And there's good reason to feel hopeful if we are piercing deeper into the problems we're trying to solve. Welcome. My name is Magnus Esteen. I have this initiative, Keys to Collaboration, and this is my first video. Thanks for joining. And so, if you stick with me a bit, what I mean to talk about is like establishing the foundation, definition, like a meta model to reason about work and discover how many of the things that were valid then are still valid now. And there's no reason to give up hope, but maybe we can expand our thinking and move forward by a more defined debate or conversation about how to make work or agile possible, to make work, right? So a meta model for reasoning about the problems we're trying to solve. At its very core, the first principles, after many years of being in it, experiencing in it, building empirical data, as well as using my brain to read, to study. So I try to be really rooted in science, what is provable, testable. And this is my promise to you as well. So system thinking, you know about system thinking? System thinking is where we try to bring out the more important factors that influence the situation at hand. And then we draw the correlation and causational loops between these factors. So we can get a model of the reality, the problem or the opportunity. And so on a very, very high level, we have work. We have work. That's the thing we're trying to get done, right? In software development, being at small or large scale. So this is the problem domain. This is the large factor. But there's another big thing that we often do not bring into our system thinking. That are the humans. And this is where we'll get a lot of new fun stuff to work with. And these two systems, they truly influence each other. See, the human mind or invention will invent the machine or work as it is perceived, right? But that's not the only thing going on. Because of the brain that is in our humans, we get conditioned by the reality we live in. And so we are building up habitual reaction patterns in relationship to work. What is it that he's saying? I don't get that. Well, imagine you're in a workplace where you're being told what to do, and you do that. And that's your situation for 10 or 20 years. So what happens with your brain is that it will stop being creative because that kind of part of your brain is not used. So you will move into an habitual relationship to work. And sometimes, though, these habits are not helpful, are they? Now, these are the very big fundamentals. They are not very possible to work with. So what if we break this down? What's the nature of work if we get something more tangible? How is work? I quite like to think about this in, it's borrowed from the K2C framework by Snowden, but there are some types of problem. And it's very clear how to solve it. You don't need particular education, it's just obvious there is a best practice or a solution. Then there are some other things that are more sorry, I'm writing Swedish, complicated. Now, these are the type of problems where you need education. Like software development might not always be exactly clear if you're untrained, you don't know, but if you get education, you will start be able to work the problem, right? Maybe car engines. How to put air into the tire is obvious, it's a clear solution. How to fix the engine, we need an expert, but it's possible to know. So this is the noble part of reality, how to work it. And then there's an interesting arena, which arguably is the whole reason why we went agile in software development back in the 90s. Some aspects of reality is complex. This is to be defined as it's somewhat uncertain. We cannot predict exactly how much this is going to cost, how long time it will take. And so we need to find methods to build data. We need to build by experience, empiricism. And then finally, or maybe not finally, this is a very simplified model and you might want to study this more, but let's say that work has all these four domains. Sometimes it's chaotic. Typically, you will find that work is in all domains, mostly over here. The more you're into, let's say, mass production or something very simple like cleaning, it's more typically here. Sometimes when it's more advanced, like in software engineering, you will find that complex is getting, it's a big part of reality. Sometimes it's chaotic. and you will typically find that the nature of work starts somewhere and then moves towards. So imagine a really difficult security incident that just hits you. Security is breached. From the beginning, it's very chaotic. What is going on here? What damage are we seeing? What kind of attack are we under? But quickly, you typically see that we're moving towards more clarity, but we still don't know. So we're doing some actions over here to quickly move to something else. We're shutting it down. We're limiting our firewall. People get together and start to work. And the more we work, the more we're moving into finding that complex and complicated and clear actions are needed in order to manage work. So the problem we are trying to solve, and the reality that might be understood as in these four gross domains, is that we will manage work differently depending upon which situation we're in. Okay? So the methods like iterations or sprints in software development is because we want to make a small bet, right? So today we do not know exactly. This is our bet, and we do believe that this sprint is valuable because of these reasons. And it's of a finite length, not too long, maybe 2 weeks. Because what we can then do is see if our assumptions or hypothesis about the value creation was correct. So in other words, you are using iteration because it's a wise way to manage work. It's effective, it's efficient. And at the same time, people get confused. They say things like, oh, agile doesn't help us with long-term predictions or reaching long-term goals. We need a hybrid model. Well, you're kind of both right or wrong. See, that's a misunderstanding. The practice of iteration is there when you have complex nature. Doesn't at all prohibit you to work with the other domains at the same time. So if you have something where you need to be in like 3 months' time, and if you have complex aspects of that, you will need to navigate that with the long term in mind and moving shorter iterations in order to in the most cost-effective way or efficient way and the effective way, you will use the agile methods to get there. Yeah. However, where the right-hand side is predictable and the left-hand side is unpredictable, we start to get a connection to humans here. See, when I've studied situations of work, someone moves into the room, maybe a salesperson or a manager. So how much would it cost, right? I'm playing theater, and there's a lot of pressure, perhaps. Show me the money. I need to know that we can afford this investment. And then we need to understand that this human, well, it's not a rational mind. Well, you could think about it as rationality being the tip of the iceberg. But mostly we are driven by automation and feelings. And so if stress is induced in someone's brain, we typically subconsciously want to have the reality to be in this part. I want to take control. I feel anxiety, but I don't know it. And my automated go-to action is to get control. So you need to give me the status reports. And we are then effectively bringing in management principles that just make things worse, because they're not adapted to the reality at hand. It doesn't take into account the complex aspect of nature. And this is not because humans are dumb. This is because we are much more than our rationality. If you have ever read the book Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow, then you know exactly. See, these automations that we have in our subconscious layers here, they're very helpful because it uses less energy in the brain. But what it also risks to do is introducing a lot of, like stress, but also cognitive biases. So we don't see reality as it is. We see reality as it's most cost efficient to do from the brain's perspective. And so we might not slow down and ask ourselves, so what problem do we have right now? What kind of nature does it have? And the more people do not have the tools to embrace chaos and complexity, the less chance they will have to put words to it, and the less chance we will have to reason about it, and the less chance we will lose ability to manage ourselves and to individually and collectively move towards rationality. See, humans are perfectly capable of being scientific and very sound and wise. It's just not our default mode. It's a habit we need to build. So maybe I need to clear this up. So what is it to be human? If we unpack it in similar ways to this, an individual, cognitive bias, feelings, there's a lot to say about what neuroscience today knows about how brain works. We don't know everything, but we do know a lot. So you might think, if you're thinking back, that we see reality as it is. It feels that way, that we see it as it is. That's not at all true. That's not how our brain works. If you think about it, this brain has never seen the light of day, nor has it ever scented roses or cinnamon or felt the taste of wine. It's just electrical chemicals, sorry, the nerve system gives signals to the brain, and it constructs the reality. And so what the neuroscience researchers are saying is that you can think of the brain as a prediction machine. So it mostly generates reality outwards by predicting it. And then it reins that prediction in by feedback loops. So in other words, if you're not a bit mindful here, I mean, and here is the cause, like, so you can find the system dynamics, and a lot of people, someone would put pressure because they have anxiety and fear about the economy, let's say, or the survival of the company. A very reasonable feeling, by the way, but if not skillfully managed, what they risk do is projecting their hypothesis about reality outwards, and those software developers cannot just be trusted. I need to take control of them. Or vice versa, if you're a software developer and you feel that responsibility is a hard thing, now the priority is totally the product owners, or this is not our problem, I'm here to do the code. And then you kind of, it's not an intellectual analysis, it's something else going on. You're not maturing to be the person you need to be in order to succeed. And then you're projecting a reality that feels good to you, rather than seeing reality as it is. But reality is our friend, although sometimes it's really a difficult friend, right? Continuing with this big meta system thinking, a single human being will have a lot of things going on that we need to dive into, but I'm just hinting at them here. Now, there's another really important domain to understand when it comes to us humans, and it's when we become us, when we are working in a group or a team or an organization. See, humans are social beings. Our social needs are so important that they are largely unconscious. Sometimes we note them, but a lot of our default behaviors as we walk into office, as we are with people, has to do with biological automations, figuring out who is who has status, who has ranking. And sometimes we like agile to be non-hierarchical, and so we are projecting that reality out, but it's not true. What biology teaches us, like Professor Sapolsky in Behave, his beautiful book, explains in great detail how it really works, is always present. So let's say this is me, this is an arena you need to understand, this is us. We are now having more system thinking factors here. And there's a final piece to the puzzle, and that's them. See, we can see people, right? But humans are also amazingly good to quickly judge individuals as an outgroup, those stems. And whereas we, in the in-group, in the team, we see individuality and we see differences, and we might appreciate each other because of that. When we are grouping people into thems, we grossly generalize them. And we say they are all the same, those managers, or those old farts at work, and us nice people, those customers or those salespersons. And we generalize and stereotype them because it feels nice to be an in-group. If you study politics, this is going on all the time. Some people are nowadays using social media to get power by claiming that there is a them, which have marginalized people feel that now I am part of us. And so they will blindly follow leaders that lead them to dark places because they have created them. If we just get rid of those immigrants, life will be much better. And it's so important to be part of us that we totally neglect the real reality because it doesn't fit the story. Now, this is politics, but the same phenomena goes on at work. So maybe let me bring this down. We are starting to end this video. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's a something. See, reality is amazingly complicated and complex. But we could start to establish definition and terminology and distinctions that helps us reason about things. My major contribution would be to say that point out that any reasoning about work needs to include the nature of humans, how we work as individuals, in groups, in hierarchies, in belonging, and how we work in relation to us and them. All these things impact the system as it arises, but it's also related to reality at hand as we are at work or outside work. And when we're finding things that goes on that we not fully understand, this kind of meta map, meta system thinking model will help you see, will help you discern in a very, very large field of information what's calling to attention. A lot of these things are normally hidden unless you're educated or unless you're a personality that kind of has it natural. It happens. But the more you learn about this, the more you're able to see. And so you thought that the problems are over here, major influences. We just need to implement the method. We just need to start using the tool correctly. But instead it's here. The reason we cannot be collectively intelligent has to do with us not fixing the social needs, the emotional needs, the habit to truly meet people with dignity and see them as they are. Because working in teams, being a great person, a great team player, is totally something you can practice and become better at. It's not that's the way he or she is. That's just the way he is. You cannot work with him. It's just so obnoxious. That's not true. It's just a behavioral pattern that needs to be worked with. And if you are embracing the work of software engineering, you're likely, you could be self-taught, but typically you have education. And then you're able to work these domains when it comes to software development, and you understand why, right? The same goes for how you work with the people. And if there was an agile, it was loosely defined in the Agile Manifesto. The underpinning principles are still there. And what might be beneficial is if we start to float up to surface a more common terminology. It might be this one. What's the nature of reality at hand? What's the problem we're trying to solve? What kind of domain are we in? Or are we in several at the same time? What's the nature of the people at work? How are we organized? How do we meet each other? What's going on in this domain? And I argue that this domain is probably the first principles of everything, because there wouldn't be anything unless humans first invented it, when it comes to work at least. It's still true though that work influences how we think. We are literally becoming what work tells us to do, but the good news is we can elevate about that habitual, disconnected, frustrated mode. There is hope. There are keys to collaboration if you put your energy in. So this was just the start of a start, right? To get this more concrete. But yeah, I'm circling back to the beginning. And I said that, this is kind of a model I'm arriving at after many years of work. After really, really studying hard. But why is it Why is it that it doesn't work, although we agreed this is the way we're going to work? Why is it that it doesn't work? Why is it that we don't understand agile? Do I need to educate them? Maybe, but I find at the very root cause of the whys, there's something over here we haven't sorted out. We haven't calmed down. We're always rushing. We do not see each other. We never have time to talk it out and define what we mean and how we see the problems and how we see collaboration. And most importantly, how we see our different roles and statuses. And if you don't know how to fix this, you're trying to do system thinking with only half of the factors in. And I don't see how that is going to work for you. So let's engage in a collaboration or conversation, you and me, or us. Maybe in the keys to collaboration or somewhere else. I really don't care. This is kind of Creative Commons, right? Let's say that. Feel free to build upon this, but do reference me. Keys to collaboration, Magnus Westin. Use the website to find me. Comment in the YouTube video. Do what you need to do. And thank you very much for staying with me this time. Let's continue exploring. Who knows what we will find.